The sky burned red over the city of Alaris Prime. Buildings that once touched the clouds now lay broken and smoking. Fire spread through the streets like hungry beasts. The air was filled with the sound of falling bombs and the cries of people who had nowhere left to run. Amid the chaos, Sergeant Ethan Cross, a human soldier, ran through the ruins. His armor was scratched, his breathing heavy, and his right arm bled from shrapnel. Still, he kept going. His orders were clear: rescue any survivors and reach the evacuation point before the next bombing wave hit. But Ethan's heart was pounding with more than fear. There was something inside him that refused to give up. He had seen too much death already. He could not leave anyone behind, no matter what species they were. As he turned a corner, an explosion shook the ground. A shockwave threw him against a wall and dust filled his lungs. When the smoke cleared, he heard a small sound. Not a soldier's voice, not a human scream. It was soft, weak, a child's cry. Ethan lifted his head and looked around the rubble. "Hello?" he shouted. "Is someone there?" The cry came again from beneath a pile of metal and stone. He rushed forward, pushing debris aside. His hands burned from the heat, but he didn't stop. Finally, he saw her. A small alien girl, her skin pale blue and glowing faintly, lay trapped under a steel beam. Her big silver eyes stared at him with fear and confusion. She couldn't be older than 10. Her thin hands shook as she tried to move. Ethan froze. He had seen her kind before. The Valari, the same species humanity was fighting against. They were called the enemy. His comms crackled suddenly. "Unit 7, report. Are you clear of the blast zone?" His commander barked through static. Ethan pressed the earpiece. "Negative. There's a survivor. A child? Human?" He looked at the girl again. Her small chest rose and fell quickly. "No, sir, Valerie." There was silence. Then came the cold reply. "Leave it." "Do you hear me, Sergeant? Leave it and move out before the next bombing wave." "That's an order." Ethan stared at the trembling alien child. The ground shook again, another explosion in the distance. He could already hear the incoming roar of the bombers returning. "Sir," he said, voice tight. "She's just a kid. Cross, if you disobey." He switched off the comms. The sky lit up with flashes of light. The next bombing run had begun. Ethan looked back at the girl. She stared at him, whispering in a broken voice, "Help, please." That was enough. Ethan shoved his rifle onto his back and lifted the metal beam. It took all his strength. His arms trembled, muscles screamed, and the wound in his side tore open again. But slowly the beam moved and he pulled the girl free. Her leg was bleeding and she was too weak to stand. Ethan lifted her into his arms. She was light like a feather. He began to run through the broken street as the bombing grew louder. Dust filled the air, turning day into night. The warning siren screamed. One long final tone, incoming strike. 30 seconds. Ethan's boots slipped on broken glass as he ran. The little girl clung to his chest, shaking. "You're gonna be okay," he told her, voice rough but steady. "Hold on tight." He spotted an old bunker ahead, half buried under rubble. It was their only chance. He sprinted for it, kicking down the door and diving inside just as the world exploded. A massive blast wave hit. The bunker doors slammed shut behind him. The roof cracked. Fire roared outside. The impact threw Ethan and the girl against the wall. His helmet shattered. His right arm took the full force. Pain like white lightning tore through him. When the sound faded, there was only silence. Smoke and dust filled the small bunker. Ethan could barely breathe. His right arm hung limp, blood soaking his sleeve. He tried to move it, nothing. He looked down and froze. His arm was gone. The girl stirred beside him, coughing softly. Her eyes opened, glowing faintly in the dark. She looked at his wound, then placed her small hands over the bleeding stump. A strange light spread from her palms, warm and soft. The bleeding slowed. The pain faded. Ethan's eyes widened as the wound sealed itself with a faint silver glow. He whispered, "What? What are you?" She looked up at him, trembling. "Lyra," she said quietly. "My name is Lyra." Before Ethan could reply, his radio flickered back to life. Only static and one clear voice cutting through. "Sergeant Cross, you were ordered to evacuate. You've disobeyed. You're on your own now." The signal died. Outside, the bomb still fell, lighting the sky like fire. Inside the bunker, Ethan looked at the alien child he refused to abandon. And for the first time, he realized this war was about to change everything, and it all began with the choice to not let go. Darkness hung heavy in the bunker. Smoke drifted through the cracks and faint red light from the burning city flickered through the shattered vents. Ethan Cross sat on the cold floor, his body trembling. His right arm was gone below the elbow. He stared at the clean, glowing wound that should have killed him. But somehow it hadn't. The small alien girl, Lyra, sat beside him, breathing slowly. Her eyes were half closed, her hands still faintly shining with silver light. Ethan watched her in disbelief. The warmth she had spread through him still lingered. His pain was gone, replaced by a strange calm. "What did you do to me?" he whispered. Lyra's voice was soft, broken, as if she was learning each word carefully. "Heal you. We're dying." Ethan leaned against the cracked wall, still bleeding through his torn armor. That wasn't healing. That was something else. She looked down at her hands. "My energy, old power." Outside, the bombing had stopped. Only distant thunder and the hum of falling ash filled the air. Ethan listened, waiting for commands that would never come. His radio was silent now. His own people had left him behind. He looked at Lyra again. She was small, barely half his size, dressed in torn gray fabric. Her skin gave off a soft blue glow in the dark. She looked fragile, almost too innocent to belong to a species humans called the enemy. "You shouldn't have saved me," he said quietly. "Your kind doesn't help humans." Lyra tilted her head, confused. "You saved me first." The words hit him harder than he expected. He remembered the bombing, the voice ordering him to leave her, and the moment he ignored it. He could have escaped. He could have lived a quiet life, but something inside him refused to walk away from a crying child, even if she wasn't human. He sighed and stood up, gripping his rifle with his left hand. "We can't stay here. They'll be back," Lyra blinked. "They?" "Drones," Ethan replied. "Machines that kill anything that moves." He peeked through a cracked wall panel. Outside, the city looked like a graveyard. Buildings were torn open, fires spread through the ruins, and a thick black fog rolled between them. Ethan scanned the distance and spotted something. 3 hovering drones moving slowly through the wreckage. Red lights blinked beneath their wings. They were searching. He turned to Lyra. "We have to move, now." She stood shakily, still weak from using her power. Her small feet made almost no sound on the dusty floor. Ethan tore a piece of fabric from his uniform and tied it around her wounded leg. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." They slipped out through a side hatch, stepping into the ruins. The air was thick with ash. Ethan guided her through narrow alleys, staying low. His missing arm ached faintly, but his focus stayed sharp. Every sound made him tense, the crack of metal, the hum of engines, the soft crunch of glass. As they passed a broken mirror, Ethan caught sight of himself, blood-smeared face, torn armor, and hollow eyes. Behind him, Lyra looked at the reflection too, then at him. "You are soldier?" she asked. "Was," he said. "Now I'm just trying to stay alive." She stopped suddenly and looked up at the sky, her glowing eyes wide. "They come." Ethan spun around. A drone had spotted them. Its red eye flashed and a high-pitched alarm screamed through the ruins. "Run!" Ethan shouted. They sprinted between fallen walls as laser fire rained around them. Ethan fired back with his rifle, but the drone's armor was strong. A blast hit nearby, throwing him off balance. Lyra fell beside him, crying out. The drone hovered closer, charging its cannon for the kill. Ethan crawled toward her, ready to shield her again, when the air around her began to vibrate. Her eyes turned bright silver. She raised her trembling hands. The air shimmered. A pulse of light burst from her palms like a wave of sound and energy. The drone froze mid-air. Its lights flickered once, then exploded in a flash of blue fire. Ethan shielded his face as pieces of metal rained down. When he looked again, the drone was gone, just smoke and sparks. Lyra collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. Her glow dimmed. Ethan knelt beside her. "Lyra, are you okay?" She nodded weakly. "Used too much." He looked at the smoking wreck and then at her small hands. "What are you? How did you do that?" She closed her eyes, whispering, "I am last of my kind. They want me. Because of this." Ethan's stomach twisted. "Who wants you?" "Everyone," she said softly. "Humans, Valeri, all." He didn't understand everything, but one thing was clear. This girl was more than just a child. She was something important, something powerful, something dangerous. He looked toward the distant hills where smoke still rose into the sky. "All right," he muttered, tightening his grip on his weapon. Then we'll get you out of here before they find you again. Lyra looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly. Why help me? Ethan met her gaze, his voice low but firm. Because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. Outside, thunder rolled again, not from the storm but from engines. More drones were coming. Ethan took a deep breath and whispered, "Let's move, kid." And as they slipped into the ruins once more, a strange light followed them. Soft, silent, and alive. The light of something not fully human and not fully alien, but maybe something better. The night over Alaris Prime was dark and silent now. The bombing had stopped, but the danger hadn't. The ruined city lay like a sleeping beast, quiet on the outside, deadly underneath. Ethan Cross and Lyra moved through the shadows, avoiding every light and sound. Ethan's body ached with exhaustion. His new wound throbbed, but his mind was sharp. He had one goal: find a safe place before dawn. They entered an old subway tunnel half buried under rubble. Rusted rails stretched into the darkness. Water dripped from broken pipes, echoing softly. Ethan switched on a small flashlight, its beam cutting through the dust. Lyra followed close behind. Her soft blue glow dimmed to a faint shimmer. She was tired, her steps small and weak. Ethan noticed and slowed down. "You holding up okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. Tired, but safe here. He looked around. For now, they stopped beside an overturned train car. Ethan pushed open the broken door and led her inside. The air smelled of metal and earth. He dropped his pack and sat down, trying to ignore the dull pain in his missing arm. Lyra sat across from him, her eyes reflecting the dim light. She looked scared but calm, like she had seen all this before. After a few minutes of silence, Ethan finally asked, "What did you mean you're the last of your kind?" Lyra hesitated. Her small hands twisted together. "Valeri, gone. My world burned. Humans came first, then others came after. Everyone fought. I was hidden." Ethan frowned. "Hidden by who?" She pointed to her chest. "Inside me. Something they want." Her words made Ethan sit straighter. "Something inside you?" Lyra nodded. "My people call it the source. It is life energy. It can heal, create, or destroy. Only few are born with it. I am last one." Ethan's breath caught. "And both sides know that?" "Yes," she said softly. "Humans want to use it for war. Valerie want to stop them, even if I must die." The flashlight flickered once, then went out. Only Lyra's faint glow remained, lighting the train car with a soft blue light. Ethan leaned back, thinking hard. If what she said was true, this child was the key to something far bigger than a war. The source, energy that could heal and destroy, could end entire worlds if misused. He rubbed his face with his one hand. "Great, so now I'm carrying a target bigger than any bomb." Lyra tilted her head. "Why angry?" He gave a small laugh. "Not angry at you, just trying to figure out what to do." For a moment, silence filled the tunnel. Then Ethan's radio crackled faintly. Static hissed, followed by a voice. "Sergeant Cross, if you can hear this, surrender immediately. You are charged with aiding the enemy. Drop all weapons and wait for retrieval." Ethan froze. The voice was his commander's, cold, hard, and close. Lyra's eyes widened. "They find us?" Ethan switched off the radio. "They're trying to." A faint rumble echoed through the tunnel. The ground shook slightly, footsteps or maybe machines. Ethan grabbed his rifle and motioned for Lyra to stay quiet. They hid behind the broken seats. Lights flickered in the distance. A small drone floated into view, scanning the tunnel with a red beam. Lyra whispered, "They hunt us." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, and they're good at it." He aimed his rifle and fired a short burst. Sparks flew as the drone crashed, its metal shell clanging against the wall. But the sound echoed far down the tunnel. "Too far. Move," he whispered, pulling Lyra along. They ran deeper into the darkness until the tunnel opened into a hidden chamber. The walls were covered in strange symbols glowing faintly, Valerie markings. Lyra stopped, her eyes wide. "This place. Valerie Templum. Old one." Ethan looked around. "You know it?" "Yes," she whispered. "My mother bring me here before war. Said this place keeps memories." She stepped toward the symbols, placing her small hand on one of the glowing marks. The ground vibrated. Light spread across the walls, forming shapes. Not random patterns, but images. Ethan watched, stunned, as the walls came alive. Holograms appeared on scenes of the past. He saw humans landing on Valari land, confusion turning to fear, then to war. He saw Valari warriors fighting back and both sides burning cities to ash. In the middle of it all, Lyra's image appeared, a small child surrounded by light, protected by Valari elders. "This is history," Ethan whispered. Lyra turned to him, her voice shaking. "Now you see truth. We never wanted war. We tried to stop it." He looked at her glowing eyes and saw something deeper, sadness, loss, and a strange wisdom no child should have. "Then why didn't humans know this?" he asked. "Because truth was buried," Lyra said. "Your leaders hid it. They wanted power. The source can end wars or start new ones." Ethan's chest tightened. He finally understood everything he had believed. The training, the orders, the cause, might all have been a lie. He looked at her and whispered, "Then I guess it's up to us to show them the truth." Before she could answer, a low rumble shook the chamber. The entrance glowed red. More drones, dozens of them, moving fast. Ethan raised his weapon, standing between Lyra and the tunnel. His voice was calm now, steady. "Stay behind me, Lyra." She looked up at him. "You can't fight all," he smiled faintly. "Then we'll make them afraid to try." The tunnel filled with light as the drones drew near. The walls glowed brighter, the ancient symbols pulsing with power, and deep within the chamber, something began to awaken. The secret was no longer hidden. The tunnels of Alaris Prime shook again, not from bombs this time, but from heavy footsteps and the deep metallic hum of approaching war machines. The air was thick with dust and fear. Ethan Cross stood at the front of the Valeri temple chamber, rifle aimed toward the red light spilling through the tunnel. His body was weak, his missing arm ached, but his eyes were sharp. Behind him, Lyra crouched beside the glowing wall, her silver eyes wide with worry. "Stay low," Ethan whispered, "and whatever happens, don't stop glowing. That light, it confuses their scanners." Lyra nodded, though her small hands trembled. "They come for us." He took a deep breath. "No, they come for you. I'm just in the way." The sound grew louder, mechanical, steady, unmerciful. 3 human combat drones rolled into view, their red sensors glowing like eyes. Ethan's heart twisted at the sight of his own side's machines hunting him. He fired first. The rifle's blue rounds cut through the dust. One drone exploded in sparks. The others returned fire, beams of plasma tearing through stone. Ethan ducked behind a fallen pillar. "Great," he muttered. "I'm officially shooting at my own army." Lyra closed her eyes and whispered something in her strange language. The symbols on the walls pulsed brighter, and a faint shield of light spread around them. The next plasma shot hit the barrier and vanished. Ethan blinked. "Whatever that is, keep doing it," she whispered. "Can't hold long." "Too strong." Ethan reloaded, firing again. The last drone fell, its circuits burning out with a hiss. For a moment, the tunnel was silent again. He turned to Lyra, breathing hard. "We have to move. They'll send more." Lyra pointed deeper into the chamber where a staircase led down into the dark. "Below, safe path." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Lead the way." They descended the narrow steps, the light from her body barely enough to see. The air grew colder. The stone changed. Smooth metal walls replaced rock. "What is this place?" Ethan asked. Lyra's voice was small. "Old Valary ship, buried before war." They reached the bottom, stepping into a massive underground hangar. The space was vast and silent, filled with broken alien machines and strange glowing tubes. At the center stood a ship, sleek, silver, and shaped like a teardrop. It pulsed faintly with life. Ethan stared. "That thing's still active?" Lyra walked closer, touching its surface. The moment her hand met the hull, the entire room lit up. The ship came alive with light and sound. "Welcome back," a calm, synthetic voice spoke in the Valari language, then switched to English. Energy signature recognized. Pilot identified. Lyra of the source. Ethan took a step back. "It knows you." Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. "It knows my blood." The ship's door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, lights flickered like stars. Ethan followed her in, awe mixing with dread. The interior was full of smooth walls, glowing veins of energy, and transparent panels that showed images, maps, star charts, even memories. Ethan touched one of the panels. It showed the war, the bombings, the first human landings, the destruction. But then it showed something else. Orders. He saw his own command insignia, messages labeled Project Harvest and words that made his blood run cold. Recover Valeri source specimen. Terminate local population. Human victory guaranteed. Ethan's breath caught. He stepped back. They started it. On purpose, Lyra looked at him, her small voice trembling. Now you see, he clenched his jaw. They lied to us. Lied to every soldier who died out there. The ship hummed louder, responding to his anger. Lights flickered across the ceiling. A mechanical arm extended from a wall, sleek, metallic, and half alive. It pulsed with the same light as Lyra's energy. She looked at him. You need arm. Ship can help? Ethan hesitated, staring at the living machine. You're kidding. Lyra shook her head. Trust it. Trust me. He took a deep breath and stepped closer. The arm wrapped around his wounded shoulder. Pain flashed like lightning and then faded. When he opened his eyes, a new arm was attached. Not metal, not flesh, but something in between. It moved when he thought, glowing faintly blue. He flexed his fingers, amazed. Feels alive. Lyra smiled weakly. Now you part of us. Before he could reply, alarms blared through the hangar. A voice echoed through his radio, sharp and cold. Ethan Cross, you are surrounded. Surrender the Valeri asset and we might spare you. He looked toward the tunnel above. Shadows moved. Human soldiers descending with weapons drawn. Ethan turned to Lyra. Get in the ship now. What about you? She asked. I'll buy you time. He stepped out of the ship, energy running through his new arm. The soldiers dropped down, rifles aimed. One of them shouted, Cross! Don't make this harder. Ethan raised his new arm. A pulse of blue light exploded outward, knocking the soldiers back. He stared at it in shock. Guess it works, he muttered. The ship's engines roared to life. Lyra's voice echoed through the hangar. Ethan, come! He ran for the ramp just as explosions shook the ground. He leapt aboard and the doors sealed shut. Outside, human soldiers scattered as the ancient Valeri ship rose through the debris, breaking free from the earth like a silver comet. Ethan looked out the viewport at the burning world below. Guess I really am hunted now, he said quietly. Lyra stood beside him, her small hand resting on the control panel. No, she whispered. Now you're free. The ship's engines flared, and together, human and alien, they disappeared into the clouds, leaving the ruins of war behind. The sky was black and endless as the alien ship soared above the clouds of Alaris Prime. Lightning flashed below, revealing the burning ruins of cities that once stood proud. Now, only smoke marked what was left of two civilizations that had forgotten peace. Inside the silver ship, Ethan Cross stood near the control deck, his new mechanical arm glowing faintly blue. Every movement of his fingers felt strange, smooth, responsive, alive. It pulsed with the same energy that flowed through Lyra, the small alien girl who sat at the pilot's seat, her hands resting on the glowing console. The ship made no sound. It glided through the air like light itself, powered by something deeper than fuel or engines, powered by the source. Ethan broke the silence. You said this ship has memories. What did you mean? Lyra turned her silver eyes toward him. This is not only ship. It is archive, a keeper of all that was lost. He frowned. An archive, like a library? More, she whispered. It remembers everything. Every voice. Every death. Every lie. The ship's walls shimmered as if hearing her. Symbols formed in the air, floating lines of blue light that twisted into moving images. Ethan stepped closer, eyes wide. He saw people, humans and Valeri, then standing side by side. Not fighting, but working together. They built towers of crystal and metal, cities of light. For a moment it looked like peace had once existed between their worlds. Then the images shifted. He saw men in black armor, humans carrying banners of war. He heard speeches from leaders calling for defense and security. He saw the first attacks and the human fleet striking Valeri colonies. Ethan clenched his jaw. We started it, Lyra nodded softly. Your people came for power. They feared the source. They wanted to control it. The visions continued. Ethan saw scientists experimenting on captured Valeri, cutting open their bodies for energy cells. He saw bombs made from the source's light, weapons strong enough to tear planets apart. He stepped back, shaking his head. We called it a peacekeeping war, but it was never that. The ship's voice spoke suddenly. calm, ancient, echoing through the room. Project Harvest, initiated by human command. Objective: capture the Valari source and engineer human fusion compatibility. Ethan stared at the glowing panel as rage built in his chest. He whispered, "They were trying to make people like me." Lyra looked at his glowing arm. They almost did. He touched the arm with his other hand. It felt warm, alive. "I thought this thing was a miracle," he said quietly. "Now I see it's a curse built on blood." Lyra rose from the pilot seat and walked toward him. "Not curse," she said softly. "Gift, if you use it right." He looked down at her, surprised by her calmness. "You talk like someone much older than you." Lyra gave a small smile. "I remember many lives. The source keeps them. All who carried it before me live inside my light." Ethan felt a chill. "So you're not just one person?" "I am Lyra," she said, touching her chest. "But I am also those who came before. I am memory." The ship's lights dimmed suddenly. A warning tone echoed. On the display, red dots appeared. Fast-moving ships closing in. Ethan leaned forward. "Human interceptors." Lyra's expression grew serious. "They found us." The ship's voice spoke again. "Multiple heat signatures detected. Estimated interception in 3 minutes." Ethan grabbed his rifle and looked around. "Can this ship fight?" "Not fight," Lyra said, "but hide." She pressed her hands against the console. The entire cabin glowed as if submerged in water. Outside, the ship faded from sight. Ethan felt a strange pull in his chest, like gravity twisting. Then, silence. The human interceptors flew past, searching, blind to what was right before them. Ethan let out a slow breath. "That was incredible." Lyra opened her eyes, exhausted. "Not forever. The cloak drains life from ship, and from me." He crouched beside her. "Hey, don't push yourself," she smiled weakly. "You saved me twice. Let me save you once." He looked at her. This small being with the power of stars, hunted by both armies, still choosing kindness. For the first time, he felt something more than duty. He felt hope. The lights flickered again, showing one last vision. A planet shining blue, untouched by war. Lyra whispered, "My home world. What's left of it. The source calls me back there." Ethan stood, determination returning to his face. "Then that's where we're going." "Why?" she asked softly. "Because if the source began there," he said, "maybe it can end the war there too." Lyra stared at him for a moment, then nodded. "Then we go home." Ethan sat beside her as the ship adjusted its course. Through the window he could see the stars ahead, endless and bright. But behind them, far below, the human fleet turned and followed their trail. The war wasn't over. It was just catching up. As the stars stretched into lines and the ship leapt into faster-than-light travel, the archives around them faded, leaving only one phrase glowing on the wall. "The truth lives only in those brave enough to remember." Ethan looked at Lyra, his jaw set. "Then we'll make them remember." The stars outside looked still, peaceful, but peace was an illusion. Inside the silver ship, warning lights flashed red across the panels. The hum of the Valari engine grew uneven, trembling under strain. Ethan Cross stood near the cockpit, staring at the readings. Behind him, Lyra sat pale and weak, her silver glow flickering like a candle in wind. The long journey had drained her. The source inside her was fading. "We're close," Ethan said quietly, gripping the console with his living hand. His new arm pulsed faintly with blue light, reacting to her energy. "Your homeworld's just ahead." Lyra looked through the viewport. Beyond the stars, a dying planet floated in the darkness. Its oceans cracked, its surface scarred by fire. The Valari homeworld, once alive, now silent, her small voice trembled. "It's still calling me," Ethan nodded. "Then let's answer it." He guided the ship into descent. As they entered the thin atmosphere, the world below came into view. Broken towers, glass planes, and what looked like a great crater glowing faintly in the distance. "The source core," Lyra whispered. "That's where it was born." The ship touched down on the edge of the crater. The air shimmered with faint blue dust, energy residue that danced in the light. Ethan stepped outside first, rifle ready, scanning the ruins. The silence was heavy but not empty. Something was watching. "Stay close," he said. Lyra followed, her glow growing brighter the closer she came to the crater. "The source remembers me," she said softly. It knows I returned. Before Ethan could answer, his wrist comms buzzed, a voice filled with static and venom. "Sergeant Cross, you're a long way from home." He froze. The voice was Commander Rourke, his former superior. Ethan slowly raised the comms to his mouth. "You still alive, Rourke?" "Oh, I'm alive," Rourke replied. "And I have orders. Bring the Valari girl in or we'll burn that planet to dust." Ethan looked at Lyra. Her eyes were calm, almost sad. "They followed us," he muttered. "They always do." A shadow passed over them. Above the crater, human warships appeared, their engines glowing red, weapons armed. Rourke's voice echoed again. "Don't make this harder, soldier. You've done enough damage." Ethan's anger burned hot. "The only damage I did was believe your lies." He cut the signal and turned to Lyra. "Get to the source. I'll hold them off." Lyra shook her head. "You can't fight all." "I don't have to," he said, loading his rifle. "Just enough to buy you time." Lyra stepped closer, her small hand touching his mechanical arm. "Then let me help." Before he could speak, her energy flowed into him, pure white light filling his veins. His arm blazed brighter, alive with power. The air around him shimmered. He gasped, feeling strength surge through his body. "Lyra, what did you do?" She smiled faintly. "Shared the source. You fight better with it." Above, the warships began their bombardment. Ethan raised his arm toward the sky. Blue energy rippled outward, invisible walls forming above the crater. Explosions burst harmlessly against the shield. Rourke's fleet adjusted, sending down troops instead. Drop pods crashed into the dust around them, releasing squads of armored soldiers. Ethan took a deep breath, gripping his rifle. "All right then." He moved like lightning, part man, part machine, part something more. Each shot he fired was guided by blue energy. Every step he took left faint light in the sand. The soldiers shouted, "He's fused with Valari tech." "Take him down." But they couldn't. Ethan was faster, stronger, unstoppable. Still, there were too many. Plasma rounds hit the ground around him. One struck his shoulder, spinning him backward. He hit the dirt hard, chest heaving. From the crater's edge, Lyra called out, "Ethan, the core is waking!" He looked up. The ground beneath her feet glowed like molten glass. Streams of blue light rose into the sky. The planet itself seemed to breathe. Lyra knelt in the center of the glow, tears on her cheeks. "It remembers the pain," she whispered. "It remembers everything." Ethan struggled to his feet. "Then make it remember peace." She closed her eyes and raised her hands. The light grew, blinding, pure, beautiful. Rourke's voice screamed over the comms. "Stop her. She'll destroy us all." The soldiers fired again, but their shots melted mid-air, dissolving into harmless sparks. Lyra's voice echoed through the wind, not in words but in song. A sound both human and alien, a melody that shook the sky. Ethan dropped to one knee, shielding his eyes. "Lyra!" The crater exploded with light. The warships overhead froze, engines failing. Their power systems overloaded one by one. Through the chaos, Ethan heard her voice inside his mind. "You saved me once. Now I save everyone." The light reached him warm and soft. His wounds closed, his heart steadied. Then gaunt silence. When he opened his eyes, the sky was clear. The warships were gone, turned to drifting ash. The crater still glowed, but Lyra was no longer there. Only faint silver dust floated where she had stood. Ethan fell to his knees, tears cutting through the dirt on his face. "Lyra." His mechanical arm pulsed once, faintly, softly, the same rhythm as her heartbeat. He looked toward the horizon. The war was over. The source was quiet, and Ethan Cross, the soldier who refused to obey, was now the last witness to what true courage meant. Light. Endless. Pure light. That was all Ethan Cross saw when he opened his eyes. For a moment he thought he was dead, drifting between stars, free from the noise of war and the weight of guilt. But then, slowly, the light faded, and shapes began to return. He was lying inside the Valari ship, its interior dim and quiet. The control panels flickered weakly, glowing with the soft silver hue of the source. Everything felt still, too still. Ethan sat up, his body aching. The first thing he noticed was the silence. No alarms, no bombs, no screaming voices from his comms. The sky beyond the ship's cracked window was calm, filled with stars that seemed to shine brighter than ever before. He looked down at his right arm. It still glowed faintly blue, but the rhythm had changed. Slower, softer, like a heartbeat that wasn't his. "Lyra," he whispered. He stood, calling her name again, louder this time. The only answer was the low hum of the ship. Then from the ceiling, a light shimmered. A small silver figure appeared, translucent like a hologram woven from starlight. It was Lyra. Ethan froze, his heart caught between relief and pain. "You're alive?" Her voice was gentle, echoing softly in the cabin. "Not like before. I am part of the source now. The energy chose to live, through you." He stepped closer, his voice shaking. "You didn't have to do it alone." Lyra smiled, the same small, kind smile he remembered. "You gave me courage. You carried me when the world fell. Now I carry peace for both of us." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "You stopped the war." Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, the truth is spreading. When the source released, every ship, every system saw what really happened. They saw the memories you saw. The lies are gone." Ethan turned to the viewport. In the distance, small lights moved. Not human or Valeri warships, but rescue vessels. Mixed crews. Human and alien together. For the first time, the stars weren't separated by war. He whispered, "You did it." Her voice grew softer, fading like a dream. "No, we did it." The hologram flickered once more, then dimmed. A single spark of light floated down and rested on Ethan's shoulder. Warm, gentle. Then it sank into his chest, disappearing. For a long time, Ethan just stood there, silent. The ship hummed quietly, its energy low but steady. He reached out to the main console, the same one Lyra used to pilot. The screen came alive, showing a faint blue symbol. Transmission ready. Ethan took a deep breath and began to record. His voice was calm, tired, but full of purpose. "This is Sergeant Ethan Cross, United Human Forces, or what's left of them. I'm sending this message to every world that can still hear. The war is over, not because one side won, but because we finally saw the truth. The Valeri weren't our enemies. They were our reflection, unscared, angry, and lied to by those who wanted power. One child, one brave little girl, gave her life to show us who we really are. If you hear this, remember her name. Remember Lyra." He paused, his hand trembling slightly. The console beeped softly, waiting. She believed that even in the darkest heart there's a spark of light. I've seen that light. I carry it now. I don't know where I'll go next. Maybe home, if home still exists. But I'll keep telling her story until the stars themselves forget how to shine. He pressed send. The message burst into space, carried by the source energy, spreading across frequencies faster than any human signal. As it traveled, screens lit up across colonies and ships. People, human and Valeri alike, stopped to listen. They saw the images the source shared. Lyra healing, fighting, and finally standing in light at the crater's heart. The war ended that night, not by surrender but by remembrance. Ethan stepped out of the ship once more, standing under the strange silver sky of Lyra's home world. The planet was quiet, peaceful. Blue flowers, glowing faintly, had begun to bloom across the crater, born from the same dust that once held the source. He knelt down, touching one gently. "Guess you're still here, huh?" he said softly. "Couldn't let me screw this up alone." The flower pulsed once, faintly, and the glow in his arm matched its rhythm. Ethan smiled, eyes wet. "Yeah," he whispered, "I know. I'll keep going." He looked up at the stars. In the endless black, a faint wave of light shimmered, the echo of Lyra's essence drifting among galaxies. He raised his hand in salute, his new arm gleaming blue. "You're free now, kid. And so are we." As he turned back to the ship, the wind carried a soft voice, faint, distant but clear. "You didn't drop me, Ethan." He froze, tears falling silently, then whispered into the empty air, "Never would." The camera of fate pulled back, from Ethan to the valley of blue light, to the planet reborn, and finally to the stars themselves, now brighter than ever. Because somewhere out there, the message still traveled, a human's voice and an alien sacrifice, a story told not in words, but in light. And across the galaxies the legend began, the man who refused to drop the alien girl and change the fate of worlds.